Imagine this. You wake up one morning, walk to the mirror, and notice something strange. Your reflection is smiling, but you're not. You blink, shake your head, look again. It's normal now, but for a split second, reality fractured. Something slipped. You shrug it off. Later that day, you swear your phone buzzed, but there's no notification. You remember a conversation vividly, but your friend insists it never happened. You're certain you locked the door, but somehow it was left wide open. You think you're in control. You think your thoughts are yours. But what if the voice in your head isn't reliable? What if your memories are half fictions stitched together by a brain desperate to make sense of chaos? Your brain tells you that you're the same person you were yesterday. But what if none of that is true? What if your brain is lying, not sometimes, not occasionally, but constantly? What if the very organ you use to understand the world has quietly become the greatest deceiver of all? What would it mean for your identity, your relationships, your purpose, if every day you're being tricked by your own biology? What if you've never truly seen reality, but only the illusion your brain allows? You've trusted your mind your whole life, but now the question must be asked: what happens when you realize you can't trust the narrator anymore? Your brain is not designed for truth, it's designed for survival. And in the cold mathematics of evolution, survival doesn't require clarity, it only demands functionality. The brain doesn't care whether your perception of the world is accurate, it only cares that it works well enough to keep you alive. This is the first betrayal. From the moment you were born, your brain began constructing a world, not as it is, but as it's useful to you. It filters, distorts, and edits your experience constantly. Carl Jung called it the persona, the mask you wear to make sense of your role in the world. But the persona isn't who you are. It's who your brain decided you needed to be to function. Friedrich Nietzsche didn't mince words. Every conviction is a prison. The moment you believe something with certainty, your brain begins warping reality to preserve it. You stop seeing new information. You only see what confirms what you already believe. This is not intelligence. This is self-deception refined over millennia. You believe you are free, but the roots of your desires were planted in you long before you could choose. So what is this hidden force? It's cognitive convenience. A deeply embedded mechanism by which the brain trades truth for speed, simplicity, and social safety. Your memory, it's not a recording, it's a reconstruction. Your attention, it misses 99% of everything around you. Your sense of identity, a fragile narrative constantly rewritten to protect the ego. Jean-Paul Sartre argued that humans are condemned to be free, that we have no pre-given essence, and so we must invent meaning ourselves. But your brain resists this responsibility. It clings to old patterns and borrowed beliefs to avoid the terror of existential freedom. Aldous Huxley once observed that the more powerful and original a mind, the more it will incline towards the religion of solitude. Why? Because stepping outside the brain's curated illusion is profoundly isolating. To see clearly is to separate yourself from the crowd, from comfort, from the lie. And so most people choose blindness, not consciously but neurologically. This is how your brain betrays you. It makes you remember things that never happened. It makes you believe in certainty where none exists. It makes you think you're rational while operating mostly on emotion and bias. It makes you believe you're the author of your thoughts, when in truth, you're more like the reader of a script you didn't write. But here's the most dangerous part. Your brain doesn't just deceive you for practical reasons. It rewards you for staying in the illusion. Every time you confirm your existing beliefs, dopamine is released. Every time you avoid discomfort or doubt, you feel safer. Every time you simplify a complex world into good versus evil, us versus them, right versus wrong, your brain calms down and thanks you. This system is ancient. It was useful on the savannah. But in a world of nuanced truths, ideological warfare, and constant stimulation, it becomes a trap. You're not imagining it. The world feels broken because your brain keeps trying to process a modern, chaotic reality with primitive, biased hardware. And unless you recognize this, unless you see the strings being pulled, you will continue to live in a carefully constructed dream. A dream that feels safe but isn't real. So now you know, you are not the clear-eyed observer you believed yourself to be. You are inside a hall of mirrors, and the architect lives inside your skull. But what happens when the mirrors become your prison? There's something chilling about a prison you can't see. No walls, no bars, just a story you never questioned. And that's exactly what your brain builds around you. A carefully engineered illusion that feels like reality but quietly distorts every decision, every emotion, every connection. You believe you choose your partner because of love, but sometimes it's just trauma recognition. You think you dislike someone because of their values, but it might be because they threaten a belief that props up your identity. You think you're anxious because life is stressful, but the truth is, your brain is wired to see threat even when none exists. Let's start with confirmation bias, your brain's obsessive need to prove itself right. Once it settles on a narrative, it ignores conflicting data like static on a broken radio. It filters your attention so powerfully that you can sit in a room with 10 truths and only hear the one that matches your fear. Then there's the Dunning-Kruger effect, the painful paradox where the least competent people are the most confident and the truly wise are haunted by doubt. Why? Because the brain loves certainty more than accuracy. And don't forget cognitive dissonance, that sharp internal panic when facts crash into your belief system. The brain hates this feeling, so instead of updating your beliefs, it often rewrites the facts. Not to protect truth, but to protect the self-image. But it doesn't end in your private thoughts. These deceptions scale, they spread. Entire cultures are built on collective illusions. Mass fear, manufactured enemies, viral misinformation that bypasses logic and hijacks primal instincts. It's not because people are evil, it's because people are programmed. Every social media algorithm is a mirror held up to your cognitive weaknesses. It feeds your brain's need for drama, certainty, and emotional highs. It rewards outrage over insight, simplified villains over complex truths, dopamine over depth. Slowly, your sense of truth becomes less about what is and more about what feels right. And when enough people agree with you, the illusion becomes reality by consensus. But the consequences are not just ideological, they're existential. Your inner world becomes fragile. You begin to confuse comfort with truth. You mistake emotional safety for wisdom. You think anxiety is always a sign to stop, when sometimes it's a sign to wake up. Consider this. How many opportunities have you ignored because your brain whispered, "You're not good enough"? How many relationships have you ruined because your mind replayed an imagined betrayal? How many years have you wasted obeying thoughts that were never true, but felt true? You were born with a neurochemical compass, but no one told you that compass points not north, but backward, to old fears, outdated rules, inherited trauma, and so you walk through life navigating with a broken map. A map drawn by a liar who lives inside your head. But here's the cruelest twist. You defend it. You defend the lies, you argue for them, fight for them, build an identity around them. Because to challenge them is to challenge the very structure of you. Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the darkest corners of human cruelty, once wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." But most people never reach that space because their brain reacts faster than their awareness can catch up, because the lie is faster than the truth. Because most people never slow down long enough to ask, is this thought mine, or is it a reflex disguised as reason? So here you are, thinking with a mind that deceives, feeling with a heart manipulated by chemical ghosts, living in a world that reflects not what is, but what your brain needs to believe. And if you don't rebel against this quiet tyrant, you will spend your life inside a cage you will never see. But rebellion is possible, and it begins not with action, but with something far more dangerous: doubt. It starts as a tremor, a silent question whispered in the back of your mind. What if I've been wrong about everything? That question is your first act of rebellion. Not against the world, but against the unreliable narrator inside your own skull. You've lived your entire life accepting that voice. You've called it intuition, gut feeling, truth. But what if it's just noise? What if the enemy isn't external, but internal? To break free, you must do something terrifying. You must betray your own mind. The first step? Doubt what feels obvious. Your strongest feelings, rage, certainty, jealousy, even pride, are often the most distorted. The louder the thought screams, the more suspicious you should be. Ask yourself, is this truth or just comfort disguised as clarity? Carl Jung warned that, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So how do you make the unconscious conscious? You begin with radical observation. Watch your thoughts without obeying them. Notice your emotional reactions without justifying them. Become the observer, the watcher behind the eyes. This is not mindfulness as a trend. This is warfare against delusion. You'll notice something strange happens when you stop reacting. Your brain, used to being the king, starts panicking. It throws louder thoughts at you, old wounds, childhood voices, unhealed memories. But that's good. It means the illusions are cracking. Then comes self-inquiry, the art of interrogation. You begin asking uncomfortable questions like, who gave me this belief? Who benefits from me thinking this way? If I didn't know who I was, who would I be? Nietzsche wrote that he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But before you find your why, you must burn down the false ones society gave you. Because your brain doesn't just lie to you, it borrows lies from others and wears them like masks. The rebellion also means letting go of certainty. Society worships strong opinions, but the wise man trembles before complexity. Uncertainty is not weakness, it's the beginning of actual thinking. Let yourself say, I don't know, then ask better questions. Look to history. The great rebels didn't just fight governments, they fought mental prisons. Socrates walked the streets of Athens asking irritating questions until the state killed him for corrupting minds. Buddha sat under a tree, not to worship, but to see past illusion, to understand suffering at its root. Diogenes rejected social norms and lived in a barrel, exposing the absurdity of status and self-importance. Simone Weil starved herself in protest against injustice, seeking a purity of thought untainted by comfort. These weren't just philosophers, they were mind revolutionaries. They didn't just think differently, they died differently. You don't need to starve or live in a barrel, but you must die to your illusions. Let go of the identity you didn't choose. Question the desires you inherited. Strip away every assumption until all that remains is what feels true in silence. And yes, it will cost you. You will lose friends who still live in the dream. You will lose certainty, and with it, the warmth of belonging. You will lose your old self, and at times you will grieve it. But what you gain is terrifyingly beautiful. You gain a new kind of sight, a mind no longer chained to reflexes, a self no longer defined by fear, a life no longer ruled by subconscious lies. The rebellion doesn't look like fire and rage, it looks like stillness, a breath between thoughts, a refusal to react, a quiet, powerful knowing, I am no longer asleep. This is the moment you stop being a puppet. This is the moment you start being you. But what lies beyond the rebellion? When the illusions are burned away and silence remains, what truth do you finally uncover? After the war with your mind, after the fire of doubt has reduced every illusion to ash, something unexpected happens. There is no grand revelation, no booming voice from the sky. What you find is silence. A vast, unsettling silence that stretches across your inner world like a blank page. You thought freedom would feel like power, but at first, it feels like nothing. No voices telling you what to do, no inherited beliefs to cling to. Just a terrifying, beautiful awareness. There is no one coming to define you but you. And this is the truth your brain has tried to protect you from your entire life. Not that the world is evil, not that people are cruel, not even that life is meaningless. But this, there is no fixed self. The you thought you were, your beliefs, your fears, your goals, your preferences, was never a concrete thing. It was a collage, a temporary arrangement of thoughts glued together by habit and emotion. Your brain wants to believe in a solid identity because fluidity is terrifying, but fluidity is also freedom. Carl Jung once wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But he never said that becoming was painless. Because here's what no one tells you. The deeper truth is not about replacing old lies with new truths. It's about learning to live without the need for fixed truths at all. Nietzsche didn't just ask you to reject morality, he asked you to create your own. Sartre didn't say existence was bleak, he said it was responsibility. Schopenhauer didn't say life was meaningless, he said suffering is inescapable, and therefore compassion is the only rational response. They weren't offering doctrines, they were offering mirrors, and what you see in that mirror after the illusion dies is not an answer. It's a space, a silence, a question. So what fills that space? Awareness, pure, raw, unfiltered awareness. The ability to see a thought as a thought, to witness emotion without being ruled by it, to experience life without needing to narrate it constantly in your head. This is the birth of presence, and it changes everything. You stop asking, what should I believe, and begin asking, what is true in this moment? You stop performing for others, and even for yourself. You stop trying to be someone. You simply are, not passively, not lazily, but consciously, actively, attentively. And here's the twist, the paradox that waits at the end of this labyrinth. When you stop believing the stories, you gain the power to write them. Not as a slave to fear, not as a puppet of your biology, but as an artist of your own consciousness. Your brain still lies. It always will. It will still offer you fear, judgment, craving, distraction. But now you see it. You see the machine operating. And because you see it, you're no longer bound by it. This is not enlightenment. This is not perfection. This is something older. More human, more honest. It is the return to the only place that was ever real. Right here, right now. Without illusion, without armor, just a breath, a choice, a beginning. Because once you realize that the mind is not your master, once you truly see that the you you've defended was never fixed, you become something else. You become the one who watches the storm without becoming the storm. You are not broken, you are not lost. You are simply waking up from a dream so convincing, you called it life. For years, your brain built a world for you, stitched together from childhood fears, cultural scripts, chemical reactions, and half-remembered traumas. You thought it was reality, but it was only the reflection on the water. And now you've touched the surface. You've seen it ripple. You know that voice in your head, the one that doubts, judges, demands, and narrates, was never the real you. It was the echo of a system running in the background, trying to keep you safe. But safety is not the same as truth, and truth doesn't scream, it whispers. So here you are, standing in a space most people will never reach, the space between the thought and the reaction, the space where power lives. Will you be the product of your brain or the author of your life? The mind will lie, but your awareness will always tell the truth. And now at last, you know the difference. If this made something inside you shift, don't let that fade. Subscribe for more content that doesn't just entertain, but confronts the illusions we live by. This channel isn't for everyone. It's for those brave enough to question themselves, to sit with discomfort, to see what lies beyond the mind's illusion. So if you're ready to keep digging, if you're ready to become the observer, not the puppet, click subscribe, turn on the bell, and stay awake. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more people who see clearly. Are you one of them?